Hi, welcome back to the Mountain Takes. There is a climber on Everest who broke the biggest record of 2026, but you never heard about him. No Red Bull documentary, no Instagram posts, no press tour, just a Polish guy in a van who decided to ski down the world's highest mountains alone. This is what happens when you don't care about being famous. Sit tight, because the real story begins now. Bartek Zimski was born in 1995 inches southern Poland, near the Silesian Beskids. The mountains there are modest by global standards, nothing like the Himalayas, but they were steep enough to teach a young boy that mountains demanded respect. By age 6, Zimski could ski. By age 16, he was climbing seriously. He studied software engineering in Warsaw, then moved to Salzburg, near the Alps, where the mountains were significantly larger. He joined Poland's national climbing program. By his 20s, he had summited peaks most climbers only read about. But here's what makes Zimski different. He hated attention. While other climbers were building Instagram followings, Zimski was unemployed and living in a van. While other climbers were seeking sponsorships, Zimski was working part-time software jobs to fund his own expeditions. When Outside magazine interviewed him at Everest Base Camp in May 2026, they asked him the basic question, why climb? Zimski answered in one sentence. He said, "I'm not a mountaineer at all. I just do it for fun." That statement contains everything you need to understand about what's about to happen on this mountain. But here's where the story gets insane. In 2022, Zimski decided he would do something that had never been done before. He called it the Mad Ski Project. The concept was simple in theory and almost impossible in execution. Climb and ski down all 14 of the world's 8 peaks without supplemental oxygen, without Sherpas, without any support team. He would carry his own gear, cook his own food, set his own tent, and when he reached each summit, he would strap skis to his feet and descend the mountain. Think about that for a second. Skiing requires constant rapid decisions, where to turn, how hard to edge, when to commit, when to bail. In the death zone above 26,000 feet, where your brain is operating at maybe 40% capacity, every decision becomes slower and more dangerous. Add zero supplemental oxygen on top of that, and the margin for error approaches zero. A fall on skis at that altitude is almost always fatal. Most people who have attempted full ski descents of 8, many of them died trying. Zimski decided to do it 9 times in 5 years. The project started in summer 2022, Inches, Pakistan. He went after 2 mountains back to back Broad Peak and Gasherbrum II. Both summits, both ski descents, both without oxygen. For someone who had just started this insane project, it was an aggressive opening move. The climbing community barely noticed. No press releases, no social media blitz, just a Polish guy descending mountains. Nobody else was trying to ski. And then he moved to Nepal. This is where things escalated. What happened next changed everything, not just for Zimski, but for understanding what the human body can actually accomplish at extreme altitude. In spring 2023, Zimski summited Annapurna without oxygen and skied down. Annapurna is statistically one of the 3 deadliest mountains on Earth, the kind of peak that kills experienced climbers regularly. Then he moved to Dhaulagiri and made the first complete ski descent of that mountain in history. But here's the moment that reveals Zimski's actual character. While he and his climbing partner Oswald Pereira were resting in Kathmandu after skiing Dhaulagiri, a distress call came through. An 84-year-old Spanish climber named Carlos Soria, one of the most respected high-altitude mountaineers alive, had broken his leg at 7,700 meters on the same mountain Zimski had just skied down. Zimski and Pereira got back on a helicopter immediately. They were dropped at Camp 2. They picked up oxygen and medicine and a sliding stretcher. They climbed up to Camp 3, found Soria in his tent, and spent the entire night helping bring him down through the dark. They stayed with him until a helicopter could extract him in the morning. While other climbers were celebrating records, Zimski was risking his life to save someone he didn't know. That's the kind of person we're talking about here. By 2024, Zimski had done Makalu and Kangchenjunga, another first complete ski descent in history. By 2025, he had done Manaslu, the same mountain where world-class ski mountaineer Hilaire Nelson had died just 3 years earlier, killed by an avalanche during her descent. Zimski skied the same mountain successfully. By the time 2026 arrived, he had 9 mountains checked off. 5 remained, 2 inches Tibet that were closed to foreign climbers, and 3 inches Pakistan, Gasherbrum, Ainanga Parbat, and K2. If he finished all 5, he would become the first person in history to ski all 14. But first, he had to get through spring 2026. This is where the story enters completely new territory, because what happened on Everest in May 2026 had never been attempted before by anyone. Zimski arrived in Nepal in early April 2026. While most climbers flew directly to Everest Base Camp, Zimski took a different route. He went to Mera Peak first and used it to acclimatize on his own terms. By the time he reached Everest Base Camp, his body was already adapted to high altitude. He was ready to move, and then the mountain closed. A massive seric collapse blocked the Khumbu icefall for 3 weeks. Hundreds of climbers were stuck at base camp, watching weather forecasts and waiting. Acclimatization rotations couldn't happen. The summit window in May kept advancing with every wasted day. For most climbers, this delay was just frustrating. For Zimski, it was a problem with a deadline. Here's where you realize why Zimski is different from every other climber on that mountain. He didn't wait for permission. He linked up with a small group of Sherpas from different expeditions. Together, they found their own route through the Khumbu icefall, while the official route was still closed. By the time authorities opened the main route on the 28th of April, Zimski was already at Camp 1, days ahead of the competition. But wait, because what he did next was absolutely unprecedented. Most climbers would take weeks to acclimate properly. Zimski took 1 rest day after his rotation. Then he started his Lhotse push. Lhotse, the 4th highest mountain on Earth. Day 1, he climbed from base camp all the way up to Camp 3, nearly 1,800 meters of vertical gain in a single day without oxygen. Most climbers would need 3 days for that. Day 2, he moved from Camp 3 to Camp 4 on the Lhotse face and rested briefly. Day 3, he left Camp 4 in the dark and headed for the summit with no oxygen, no Sherpa, and no fixed ropes, because the rope fixing teams hadn't finished yet. Zimski broke trail himself on the upper section of Lhotse. He summited on May 12, 2026, at approximately 8:15 a.m. He was the first person to reach the top of Lhotse that season. And then he did something that had literally never been done before in the history of mountaineering. He strapped skis to his feet at 27,940 meters and descended 1,600 meters through the Lhotse couloir, a narrow chute of ice and snow angled between 40 and 50 degrees. He skied down the Lhotse face. He crossed the upper western CWM. He navigated through the Khumbu icefall. From summit to base camp with no breaks, no rest sections, no skipping terrain. He became the first person in history to complete a ski descent of Lhotse. Most climbers would have needed weeks to recover from that. A no-oxygen summit on the 4th highest mountain is a catastrophic physical hit to your body. Zimski rested for 7 days, and then he did it again, but this time on Everest. This is where the story becomes almost impossible to believe, but every detail is documented. On May 19, 2026, just before midnight at Camp 4, Zimski started his Everest summit push. By this point, the mountain was crowded, hundreds of climbers moving simultaneously on the same route, fighting for the same weather window. The clean lines that had been available on Lhotse were completely gone. Zimski had to navigate around hundreds of other climbers ascending fixed ropes. He summited Everest at 9:30 a.m. on May 20. He asked a nearby climber to take his summit photo, and then he did what only one other person in history had ever done. He skied down from the summit to base camp without supplemental oxygen. But here's what makes Zimski's descent different from everyone else's. He did it completely alone, completely self-supported, with no team waiting at camps, no Sherpas breaking trail, no support structure. The descent took 5 hours. He skied 3,485 vertical meters from the summit back to base camp. He had to navigate around other climbers still ascending. He had to find lines through terrain that wasn't designed to be skied. He had to ski sections of the Khumbu icefall that he had already skied down just 1 week earlier on Lhotse. He reached base camp at 2:50 p.m. on May 20, 2026. He had just become only the second person in history to ski from the summit of Everest to base camp without supplemental oxygen. More importantly, he was the first person to ever do it completely self-supported with no team. No one inches mountaineering history had ever skied both Lhotse and Everest in the same season. But here's the thing that makes this even more remarkable. While Bartek Zimski was quietly breaking records that would be studied for decades, almost nobody noticed. The 2026 Everest season will be remembered for a dozen other records: most permits ever issued, most summits in a single day, most revenue collected by Nepal, strictest rule set in history, hundreds of news articles, thousands of Instagram posts. But the biggest physical feat of the 2026 season belonged to the climber who least seemed to care about being noticed for it. Compare this to what happened 8 months earlier when another Polish climber, Andrzej Bargiel, became the first person ever to ski Everest without oxygen. Bargiel's descent was sponsored by Red Bull. He had Sherpas fixing the route ahead of him. He had a full support team. The expedition was professionally organized and heavily documented. When Bargiel reached the summit in September 2025, it became a massive media event. The Polish Prime Minister posted about it. Red Bull released a polished film. Bargiel went on a press tour. Zimski's descent 8 months later was the exact same achievement, becoming only the second person to ski Everest without oxygen, done in a completely different way, completely unsupported, completely undocumented, completely unnoticed by the world. By the end of the 2026 spring season, he has 5 mountains remaining. 2 are in Tibet, Cho Oyu and Shisha Pangma, but both are closed to foreign climbers in 2026 due to Chinese government restrictions. That part of the project is stuck indefinitely. The other 3 are in Pakistan in the Karakoram Range, Gasherbrum, Nanga Parbat, and K2. K2 is the only one that has ever been skied before, and Andrzej Bargiel did it in 2018 with a full team and perfect condition. If Zimski finishes all 5 remaining mountains, no one else has even attempted it. No one else has even considered it possible. I'm Isaac from the Mountain Takes. Bartek Zimski lives in a van. He has no sponsors. He has no team. He has no social media following. He just decided to do something that nobody else on Earth has done, and he did it alone. While the world was watching hundreds of climbers fight for summit spots, one man was quietly rewriting the rules of what's possible on mountains. If you've ever wondered what separation looks like between chasing records and actually breaking them, between climbing for attention and climbing for yourself, subscribe, because there are more stories of mountains that belong to the people who least care about being famous. I'll see you on the next descent.
Wow.